It's hard to say this and sound sincere, but it's true, is, it's oftentimes you say, oh, it's the reason I got into movies. But I remember seeing The French Connection when I was a very young kid and thinking it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen, and also completely different from what was popular, which of course was, Star Wars and Superman at the time, very different. One of the great directors in the world, and may I say maybe the greatest director in the history of cinema in his use of sound, I think. So at least this is my view, and that's all that matters. So, William Friedkin.
James failed to mention some of my other hits, like Gone with the Wind and Citizen Kane. You left that out. The Godfather 3. No. Good evening, and thank you for coming this evening. I didn't realize there'd be such a distinguished audience here tonight, or I would have dressed better. Film is the most collaborative of media. You all know that. I doubt that there's any great filmmaker who could stand in front of a blank canvas and come up with a Monet or a Rembrandt. And I don't think there's any great filmmaker who could sit down and write a novel as good as 100 Years of Solitude or anything by Proust or Faulkner. But if you want to make a film, you have to work with, well, you see the end credits of a film. You see how many people contribute to it. And often, the people who contribute so much to it don't even have their names on the screen. They're grips and electricians and prop people who don't even get credit. But in order to make a film, whether it's a good film, a great film, a masterpiece, or a dog, you're working with other people. And that's what I enjoy about it. What I'm really looking for is spontaneity. I value spontaneity much more than perfection. And usually spontaneity is in the first printed take. And after that, I find as a director that I was going for something else, or get this moment better, or get a different reading or something else. And the spontaneity is often gone, and it feels acted. The worst thing to me about a performance is when it seems to be acted, when it feels acted. And the best thing for me is when it looks like the camera's just dropped in and happens to be experiencing, as the audience experiences, what's going on for the very first time. What I try to do is shape the film from the beginning, and that is a collaboration with the editor.
Billy is probably the easiest director I work with because he has this combination of both, prepared isn't the word, he has a very, very clear understanding of the film he's trying to make from the get-go, and yet he's also the most instinctive in terms of he just trusts his gut. So he comes in, with Billy, and Billy's the only director I do this with, where I don't do a first cut. I familiarize myself with the material during shooting. I get to know every single shot that's there, and I know what we have. I know where potential problems are. I try and trust the first ideas that I come to when watching the footage. But very shortly after shooting is done, Billy will come in, and we'll start putting together the movie from scene one, and we do that very, very quickly. Billy doesn't do a lot of takes compared to other filmmakers I work with. And we can get through that process and have a cut very quickly. And then, in a way, the real good stuff starts once we've gone through that process, and we get to sort of rethink what's there.
The look of the film starts with the production designer. And the way I've worked with Franco Carbone on 2 occasions is I'll bring in some pictures to show him of what I have in mind, and he brings in some photos or paintings or whatever that he has in mind, and very often they're the same thing. We have very often brought each other the same pictures, or he's brought me stuff that I thought was better.
Everything with Billy is captures his imagination. Everything is dramatic in terms of everything you present to him speaks to him. in probably a more visceral way than any director that I've worked with before. I mean, there isn't a pillowcase or a teacup that you have to justify. Why is this here? It has to have a discernible reason. And so every location that we chose, there isn't a better or worse, whether it's a set or it's a location. Everything had to have a very grounded and discernible reason to be there. And it had to comment on the character in a way that, and it had to the level of scrutiny that I really hadn't experienced before.
We will work, we'll say matching is for sissies, but we will work to make every cut a match. We will work to make every cut something that you don't see or don't notice. And when we can't, then we work to make it something aesthetic. We work to make it something that works because it doesn't match. And it's not something, I've seen it, don't even worry about it. There's no cut that we are not going to sweat over.
When I started, basically the script supervisor ran the film. She'd say, oh, he picked that cup of tea up with his left hand. Oh, shit. Well, oh, he did this, or his hand was there, or his collar was here. And I finally realized that a lot of that stuff didn't matter. What mattered was the emotional truth of the moment. That's what you're going for. You all have your own subjective impulses. And all of us as filmmakers are trying to reach you. We're just trying to reach you. I can stand up here all day and say I'm trying to please myself, but I don't get to make a film unless it's going to have an audience or hopefully have one. Same will be true of all of you. Whatever your dreams or visions, it isn't called show art. It's called show business. Most of the independent films are done by people who have something they feel strongly about and want to share with other people. And so independent films will range more widely across the spectrum than what comes out of the average studio today, and for many years.
Independent cinema is not a financial term, really, I don't think. Independent cinema is like, does the film have soul? Is it making a comment? Is it personal? That's what makes the film feel independent, if you will. And to me, that's what distinguishes a movie as a work of art from any old thing that you consume, like a hamburger. So to me, it's the whole thing.
The great filmmakers rely on the people they work with. And what you're doing as a filmmaker, if you're a director, for example, is you're trying to provide an atmosphere for the people that you're working with to give their best work, whether it be the actors or people on the crew. It is the most collaborative of media, and that's how great films get made. If you don't like collaboration, don't go into filmmaking. Nice to talk to you. It's a great pleasure, and good luck to everybody out there.